Okay, well, welcome to boot camp this week. So last we met, we talked about ratios. And so really quick question, do you guys remember the ratio for young school age, those kids who are in grades kindergarten through third grade? Remember what it is?
1 to 12.
Yep. And what's the ratio for older school age? These are kiddos in fourth grade to age 15.
1 to 15.
Very good. And what happens if you have a mixed age group?
It goes by the youngest kid in that age group.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So now we are going to get into supervision. I will tell you that supervision is probably the biggest area of our citations, to be honest with you. And so this is going to be a couple of parts. And so hopefully you guys come back next week to get part 2 of supervision, because it is pretty important. So supervision, this regulation is 3270-113. And the supervision states that children on the facility premises and on facility excursions, that's the field trips, off of the premises shall be supervised by a staff person at all times. Outdoor play space used by the facility is considered part of the premises. So for example, Homewood, it's a building, and outside it has a tennis court. When the kids are in the tennis court or basketball court, they need to be supervised there. You just can't let them go out on their own. So kids you need to be able to see, hear, direct, and assess the children at all times. The way we implement this supervision, this regulation, is that each staff person has to be assigned the responsibility of specific children. The staff person shall know the names and whereabouts of the children in his or her assigned group at all times. The staff person shall be physically present with the children in his or her group on the facility premises and on those facility excursions off of the presidents. So in other words, again, you have to be physically present, meaning you can't be on your phone or you can't be doing something else while supervising children. Does that make sense? Okay. We do have a further implementation of this regulation, and this is where our standard operating procedure comes into play. It's called the Youth Enrichment Supervision. I'm going to show you how to get there, but you all have access to the shared drive, Youth Enrichment drive, and I have put an SOP folder in there. So you can actually go in and see every SOP that we have created. This is some of the work that our MAPS team did over the last year. If you do not have access to this SOP folder, please let me know. And we can get that corrected. Okay. So I'm going to go, I'm going to show you how to navigate to this particular SOP. I'm going to go to shared drive. I'm going to share this. Okay. So shared drive. You're going to scroll down to Youth Enrichment Drive. There was now an SOP folder in there. Okay. It has a little arrow there that tells you that this folder actually lives on the another drive, but I made it easy for you to get to. So you're going to click on this SOP folder. And here is where all of our SOPs live. We've got a lot of them. Okay. Excuse me. Down here, Supervision SOP. Here it is. Youth Enrichment Supervision. Okay. So it has a purpose, and the purpose is to provide the safety and prevention of injury. That's the bottom line. Sorry about this, guys. Okay. Applicable to all enrichment staff, program directors, site directors, camp-based early child care, this is applicable to everybody. And essentially the policy quotes the regulations. Supervision is vital for the safety and injury and prevention of all youth. Is main high quality programming. Ensuring the health and safety of the youth entrusted in our care is a major responsibility of the staff. Can't stress that enough. You must be able to see, hear, direct, and assist those children at all times. Okay, there is a procedure. It does go into the ratios, which we've talked about. This also goes into the hands-free identification system, and this is what we're going to talk about today. Okay, we talked about the ratios. I'm scrolling down. Some things to point out are that staff are not permitted to leave their room unless the room is in ratio. So think about that. Okay, you have a group of, say, 24 kids. There are 2 staff in the room. 3 kids decide they need to go to the bathroom, which is out of that room. So you need to get those 3 kids to the bathroom, but you cannot leave the room out of ratio and unsupervised, because if you leave the room, you're leaving 17 kids, or my math is wonky. You're leaving 21 kids with 1 staff person. You just can't take 3 kids. Okay, you can't leave that room out of ratio. So you literally, if you have to leave the space, you literally have to take 12 kids with you to all go to the bathroom. Okay, make sense? Volunteers and aides. Many of you may have aides this summer. You need to be aware of that. Aides cannot be left alone with children. They can be part of the ratio, but they cannot be left alone with children. So again, if you have a group of 24 kids, you could have, let's say you could have yourself and an aide, that you can never leave that aide alone. That aide has to stay with this larger group of 24 kids. That aide cannot be left alone with kids. That aide cannot escort children to the bathroom. So if you've got children who have to go to the bathroom and you have to leave that space, guess what? You got to take all 24 kids. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. We do have a ratio tracking form, which we created because, again, a little history here. We've had a lot of citations around supervision. Not saying we're not requiring it at this time unless we have an inspection and there's a supervision issue. Then we will have you record ratios every 30 minutes to make sure that we're in compliance. That's just a side note. Okay. This is a good point to remember. Any staff person has to be able to state how many kids are in their care at all times. Okay, so if you have 12 kids in your group, you've got 12 tags, and we're going to talk about the tags in a minute. But if you have 12 kids in your group and one of those kids leaves, you need to know that you have 11 kids, not 12. And I will say that the director has a little bit tougher job because the director needs to know how many are in your camp. For example, camp's coming up. A director needs to know how many kids are at camp at any point in time. So many camps will keep like a dry erase board, like a little dry erase board to keep track of the count. So when kids are leaving, they're marking the total number of kids. So your bigger camps, if you've got, 50 kids at your camp, you probably have 5 different groups of kids. You have to know who's leaving so that you have a total count of your kids in that camp. Okay. Same with base. Base is a little bit easier because you're all in the same space. You got 36 kids. You're going to keep track of, 2 kids left. Now I have 34. 5 kids left. Now I have 29. You got to keep track of that. Okay. DHS has been known to ask you. They've been known to ask the director how many kids are in care. They don't want to know how many kids are in each group, but they do. They do. They're going to want to know how many kids are in each group and then how many kids total are. That's how they've caught us, actually. and have cited us because we've miscounted a child in a group and the overall count. So it is, you got to keep track of the number of kids in your group. This is why, number 7 here, staff regularly count the youth in their group when you're coming or going. Just regularly count. You know, when you go outside, I got 12 kids. I'm going to count before I leave. I'm counting 12 heads when I come back in. I'm getting on a school bus to go on a field trip. I'm counting 24 kids getting on. I'm counting 24 getting off. You got to keep your counts going all the time. It doesn't hurt to count all day long for that. Every transition even. You know, I'm taking 12 kids from the multi-purpose room to the gym. I got 12 kids when I get to the gym. Just a good habit to get into. Okay. Staff are never, ever, ever to be alone with a youth where others cannot observe them. Okay. This is why, you know, even in the bathrooms, we have the rule where 3 children go in, not 2 children, or, you know, 1 staff. This is why we have 2 staff present at all times with children, because they should not be left alone with a child. Number 9 here. This is key, because I also want to point out this number 9 affects when you go outside too. Okay, so room arrangement. Staff need to position themselves in a room where they can see the kids at all times. Okay. If you've got a partial wall or something and you've got a kid behind that partial wall, you can't see them. So you've got to be constantly moving to keep track of where your kids are. Another example, on a playground. Okay, let's say you're on a playground and you have a big play structure. Kids are moving all around and you planted yourself in one part of the playground. Kids get around the play structure. Can you see them? Probably not. So you need to be moving around the playground to be able to see these kids all the time. Okay, make sense? Okay, so we do have a system, hands-free identification system. This is where the tag system comes into play. The business office makes those tags. They print out the child's name, and they're also going to print out symbols on there. A symbol for sunscreen if they can use sunscreen, a symbol for if they can get their pictures taken. Another one is allergies, if they have an allergy or not. And there's one more that I'm missing. You remember what it is?
Sanitizer.
Yeah, thank you. Sanitizer. So those symbols will be printed out on the tags. If they cannot do any one of those, there'll be a big old X through them. And then each counselor, each staff person should be assigned to a child. Each child should be assigned to a staff person. And you carry those tags with you all the time. You'll take them with you when you go swimming this summer. They need to go in the water with you. If you are transitioning counselors, even, let's say you have a group of 12 kids, your shift is over, those 12 tags need to go to the next counselor who's taking over your shift. If a child is leaving for the day, that name tag comes off and put away. The opposite is true. Some camps, when the children arrive, they make the kids responsible for getting their own tag and giving it to their teacher or counselor. Okay. And so when the child leaves, some camps and programs will actually give the child their tag, and the child puts the tag away. So get your kids involved. It really helps in that process. Any questions so far? You guys are already doing the tags. So this is actually nothing new, but this SOP spells it out. Okay. You will have DHS. This has been an issue in the past too. You will have DHS, because they know our system. You will have DHS. Well, how many kids you have, and where are those kids? And you need to be able to point out to where your kids are. And she or she will ask you, well, how many tags do you have? 10. Well, how many kids are in your group? 11. Well, that's an issue. Somewhere there's a miscount somewhere. You could have 10 tags and 8 children present in your group. Well, you have 2 extra tags. So that's an issue. The tag should always match the number of kids that are in your group. Does that make sense? Okay. Another thing to point out here, and I mentioned this with the playground issue, when number 7 here, when taking youth outside, one staff should be in the front to lead the group and another one should be in the back to watch the group. Because if you've got them walking, let's say, to the playground, and you've got both counselors in the lead and you're walking forward, you have no idea what's going on behind you with a group of kids. So you should always have one person in front and one person in back so that you've got eyes on the kids at all times. Okay. And we've touched on this. Number 10, groups can be rearranged for various reasons to maintain ratios as youth begin to leave. But again, you've got to, those tags need to switch with the kids. So if you've got a child going to a different group, that tag should go to the counselor supervising that group. But can't be out of ratio. That's the key. So if you've got a group of 12 kids, you've got 2 groups of 12 kids, you're at camp and you got 2 activities going on and one child from one group wants to go to the other group. You can't do that unless you split flop kids, because you send a kid over to another group, you have 13 kids, you're out of ratio. And we'll practice this more as we get into summer camp training, because to talk about it is one thing, but to actually implement it is quite another. It can be a little tricky. Okay. Questions? Any comments? Emily, you've been around for a while. You got some practical examples you can share?
I mean, we have our kids get their own tags, so that they're responsible for them, and have them put them back. The one thing that we had to modify this year is, when we pick our kindergartners up, we bring their tags up with us, but we drag our little stand down with us to aftercare, and the kids get their tags when we're in the gym. So that's my cat. So we bring them, they get them while they're in the gym. So we hadn't initially, and then because we didn't want to be disruptive, but they get them right away when they're in the gym. And it works for us. So
I think it does help. If you get the kids involved in the process, it really does help. And the kids learn the process. They know what to do and how to do it and who their counselor or teacher is.
Yeah, it gives them ownership too. And they know, we have a Harry Potter group and a Pokemon group. That's what they picked. And so we have a Harry Potter teacher and a Pokemon teacher, and they know where they go, and that's how. So yeah, so they have some ownership of the program, and they like it, so that works.
That's great.
Can anyone tell me where to buy those stands that have the little pockets for them to put the cards in?
So I believe Kim and Todd may have purchased those for the camps. So check with Todd or Kim.
There might be an extra one, because there was one at Birchfield, and we are not at Birchfield anymore. So I don't know what the supply situation from Birchfield is, but I know there was one there that we did not take. So
okay, cool. I'll email Kim and Todd and see what
I needed one for base, and Jess ordered me the pockety thing, and then I ordered the stand, which is just like a rolly clothes hanging stand thing. And so I have the link to the stand part, and then Jess will have a link to the other one.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you. I'll reach out to everybody and see so I can get one. Thank you.
Perfect. Any other comments, questions? All righty, I'm going to turn off the recording.